Good morning, everybody. This is day 11 of our lockdown, and today we're going to try and do a science experiment at home in our kitchens. Mothers of online, I apologise in advance. So what we'll do is we're going to set up 3 experiments. All right. We have not an ability to change my camera while I'm filming. We have our red cabbage. We're going to set this one up. We have our butter beans, and we have our mysterious sugar experiment. Today, we'll set the 3 of these up. They do take a little while, and we're going to come back over the next couple of days and work through them. Now, if you haven't been able to track down any of these things, we're doing this video because you can work along and use my experiments as your data. All right? So, first things first, we're going to chop our cabbage. So, chop, chop, chop. Nice and simple, don't cut your fingers off. And need about a quarter of the cabbage. And we're just going to keep it into rough chunks. There we go. Chop, chop. Right, fabulous. Something like this kind of a size chunk. We're going to take all of those chunks and put them in our pan. Mash them in. There we go. Pan is filling up nicely. Ta-da. And we'll just get the last few bits and pieces. Fantastic. So, oops, there we go. A full pan of chopped cabbage. If you have any spares, it makes a nice coleslaw. Now, we are going to go and put some water into this. At this point, I need a third hand, but you know, we'll do our best. So, a little bit of water. And we're not going to fill it fully to the top. So, little question here. Why don't we fill it to the top? Now, next step, stick it onto the stove. So we'll stick it on here, like this little guy. And we're going to bring this to the boil. Let it boil it up nicely, and then turn it off and let it cool in the pot. Off we go. Now, experiment number 3 is going to be about butter beans. What we're going to do is we're actually going to grow a bean in a jar. Now, one of the interesting things we're going to do in this one is we're going to grow it in a jar with just a little bit of paper. So we'll get our little tissue roll here, fold it over, bundle it up, and we're going to stick it into our jar. Squishy, squishy, squishies. Ta-da! Now, a lot of people think that we'll need soil to grow a bean. Turns out we won't. It's one of the interesting things we're going to learn in this experiment. So we'll get our beans. Thank you, Super Value. Find our scissors. Chop, 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 chop. And here we have a couple little butter beans. Now this works quite nicely with other beans like pinto beans or kidney beans, but these guys do make a cool plant in the end. So, what we're going to do is we're going to squish a little bean. Now, the real trick with this, if you can do it, is to hold the beans along the edge, maybe a little bit further down than that. So we'll see if we can get a couple more beans about halfway down. We don't want them right down the bottom. There we go. Pop these guys in. That little chap fell at the bottom, so we won't worry too much about him. We'll see if it really matters. And we'll pop one more in over here. Poke, 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 poke. And there we go. So now we're set up to start going with our beans. Do you think they're going to grow at the moment? What else might they need? Good thinking. So, we need a little bit of water. a little bit of water. So we're going to put a very small amount of water in, just a little bit to keep it wet. So let's try this now, because I can't do this with the phone on me, but there we go. Okay, so status report. All the paper towel in mine is damp. The beans are reasonably happy, although a few of them have fallen down. We're going to have to live with that. And the purpose of the paper is to hold some moisture in here. The beans are going to need some water. We don't want to drown them, but a little bit of water here. And as things go on, we're going to have to top up this water every now and then, just a small bit in every day. You just want a damp environment for it. And at that point, we're ready to roll. So we're going to put this somewhere. Now, if you really want to go nuts on this one, make a second jar, put one in the daylight and one in the dark. See what happens. For the moment, I'm going to leave my jar just tucked here on the side of the kitchen counter so I can keep an eye on it. That's experiment 2 all set up. Now, for experiment 3. Our third experiment is going to be a run with the bag of sugar. You're going to like this experiment. Now, what we need is a pot. Put that in my weighing scales there. So, because we're going to be able to measure this. So sugar and some water. Now, having learned from my previous inability to actually turn the tap on, I have a jug of water. So, the important thing here is we're going to go with a 3-to-1 ratio of sugar to water. So I'm going to put in 600 grams of sugar, 200 grams of water. All right, and again, you can adjust this up and down if you needed to put in. If you were putting in 750 grams of sugar, 250 grams of water, that would work just fine. So here we go. The scale is on. Now, this is going to be backwards on my phone, but there's a button on a lot of the scales, usually says TARE, T-A-R-E, and you can hit that to reset it to 0. So, let's go for 600 grams of sugar. And that's really quite a lot of sugar. There we go. And in the backwards numbers there, you can see we've just gone over. And of course, it's not a big deal if we go over. Spoon time. And just scoop it out. So again, this is good practice at our measurements. And there we go. Okay, so we have that. Reset, 0 it again, and we're going to pour in 200 grams of water. This one is a little harder to take out, so take your time and see can you get this one right. Okay, so I now have a big sugary watery solution, and if I go and stir, it's really thick and kind of gloopy. Alright, now this is a mixture we've made up here. We have a solute, the water, and we have no, we don't have a solute the water, we have a solute the sugar, and a solvent, which is the water. So stir, 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 stir. It's not dissolving, is it? So, any thoughts? How could we make this dissolve better? You're right. Heat. So, by the power of fire, we are going to get this bad boy to dissolve. Now, this is the bit where you do need to be quite careful. Hot sugar gets really hot. So, I want you guys to do this, get a bit of help from an adult or an older sibling if it needs to be. We're going to heat this up just before it starts boiling. If you see any little boils, we turn it off. We're going to stir gently as we go, and then we're going to let it cool down, okay? Don't put your finger in to check the temperature. Trust me, I've done it. It doesn't end well for your finger. So, here we go. A little bit of heat. A little bit of stirring. Now, and of course, because we know that metal conducts heat rather well, we're going to go find a wooden spoon. So we're going to leave this one go. In the meantime, my delicious bowl of red cabbage is just starting to boil. So I'm going to turn this guy off and we'll let the cabbage cool down. At this point, you might be wondering, what are we doing with the cabbage? Well, if we have a little look at it closely, okay, and we look at our water, we've got this lovely purple water. So we've extracted some of the dye that makes the cabbage red. And this dye, it turns out, can be used as a universal indicator. Okay, updating the sugar. If we look very closely down here, we can see all the little bubbles is beginning to boil, beginning to go. So we'll give it a little stir, be nice and careful, nice little stir around. All right, it's quite happy at this stage. You can see it's mixed up into more of a nice continuous mixture. And we're going to turn off the, and there it goes, and we're definitely going to turn off the heat at this point. So now I'm going to go off and leave this for a good hour or so until it's properly cooled down before we do our next step. Now that our sugar is cooled, we can see that all of the sugar is completely dissolved. A little bit here starting to crystallize out on the top of it. Now in our experiment here, we're going to grow crystals, tasty crystals. So the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take our little bit of string that we have. A nice clean string, something you might want to eat off, and we're going to dip it in the sugar. Now just make sure the sugar's cooled down at this point. We don't want to be getting any burns in ourselves. I'm going to pop it in there. Of course, if you have two hands, this is a little bit easier. There we go, pokey pokes. And we're just going to coat it with a little bit of sugar. Now, we'll lie that down here. And we need to wait for this to dry off. This is going to give us some seed crystals, small little crystals that are going to help the bigger crystals grow when we get the whole thing set up later on. So leave this for a little while and we'll come back to it in about half an hour. Alright folks, well that is all for today. I'll post an update on our sugary string bits and pieces later on today. We do have one final step to do with that, not very hard. And then good luck. I will be talking to you again on Thursday. Enjoy yourselves.